Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that touches all of us, but is still surprisingly mysterious. Orgasm.
It really is.
We've got this amazing AI analysis. It really drills down into the neurobiology, the evolution, the significance of it all.
Yeah, a really comprehensive look. Biological, physiological, psychological angles.
And our mission today is basically to pull out the most fascinating bits, the stuff that might just, change how you think about it.
Exactly. To get beyond the basics and see what's really going on under the hood, so to speak.
Okay, so let's kick things off. What is an orgasm? Defining it seems like step one, but maybe not as simple as it sounds.
You're absolutely right. It's not straightforward. Biologically, okay, you've got muscle contractions, changes in heart rate, blood pressure.
Right, the physical stuff you can measure?
Yeah. And physiologically, it's heavily mediated by the autonomic nervous system, the body's automatic pilot.
But then there's the feeling, that intense pleasure, sometimes euphoria, like an altered state almost?
Yeah. Precisely. And it's that weaving together of the physical reaction, the subjective personal experience, that makes a single universal definition so tricky.
It's like, where do you draw the line? Is it the muscle twitch or the feeling of release?
Exactly. It highlights how connected our bodies and minds really are in this experience.
Okay, so one distinction the analysis makes right away is between male orgasm and ejaculation. They often go together, but they're not the same thing.
Correct. Very important distinction. Ejaculation, the release of semen, usually happens with orgasm in adult males, but orgasm is the broader peak experience, the sensation and physiological climax.
And knowing that difference matters for understanding certain situations, right? Like medical conditions or...
Yes, or even just development. They don't always perfectly sync up.
Interesting. And this isn't just us humans, is it? The analysis suggests we see similar things across the animal kingdom.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite widespread. Primates, obviously macaques, bonobos, chimps, but also other mammals. Dogs, cats, rats, dolphins.
Equals, yeah.
Yeah. And it might even extend further. Birds, reptiles, maybe fish. Even some invertebrates like fruit flies show signs that sperm release is rewarding.
Fruit flies. Okay, that's wild. So this suggests a really ancient link, doesn't it? Connecting sex, or at least releasing gametes, with pleasure.
It really does. It points towards some conserved neurobiological mechanisms. Evolution seems to have strongly favored making reproductive behaviors or related social ones feel good. It must be important.
So bringing it back to humans, when does this capacity actually show up, the analysis says? Surprisingly early.
It does. The basic physiological equipment is there from infancy. Children can experience sensations that seem orgasmic, sometimes through play or self-discovery.
Before puberty even hits?
Yes. Young boys might even have orgasms without ejaculation.
Then puberty arrives, menarche for girls around 12 and a half, spermarche for boys around 13, 14.
Right, the biological systems are maturing, coming online for reproduction.
But the first reported orgasm, that's different, especially for girls.
Exactly. Boys typically report their first orgasm around 13, often linked to masturbation and their first ejaculation experiences.
But for girls, it's closer to 17 on average. That's quite a gap.
It is. And given that female puberty starts earlier, that 4-year difference really suggests it's not just biology.
It points to other factors.
Definitely. Sociocultural influences, how comfortable we are with female sexuality, self-exploration, communication, all likely play a role.
Okay, so the stage is set. Let's get into the physiological architecture. What's actually happening inside? Our analysis mentions models of the sexual response cycle.
Right. The classic one is Masters and Johnson's EPOR. Excitement, plateau, orgasm, resolution, very linear, based on observing physical changes.
Groundbreaking stuff at the time.
Absolutely. Then Helen Singer Kaplan added desire at the beginning, recognizing that it often starts with a psychological impulse, not just physical touch.
Made it less mechanical, more human.
Yeah. And newer models, like Bounceless for Women, are even less linear, suggesting desire can arise from intimacy or arousal. And the dual control model talks about accelerators and brakes excitation and inhibition.
So our understanding has evolved to include more psychology.
Definitely. It's not just plumbing. It's about the brain, emotions, context.
But let's talk about the plumbing for a second.
Yeah.
The physiological nuts and bolts, nerves, muscles.
Okay, it starts with sensory input, right? From erogenous zones. Nerves like the pudendal nerve carry signals to the spinal cord and up to the brain.
And initially, it's the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest one, but here it's arouse.
Kind of, yeah. It releases nitric oxide, causes vasocongestion, blood flow, engorges tissues, leading to erection, lubrication.
Okay, that gets things going. But orgasm feels different, like a switch flips.
It does. You get this big surge of sympathetic nervous system activity, the fight or flight system, but working alongside the parasympathetic.
Both at once. That's unusual.
Very. And this sympathetic surge triggers those rhythmic muscle contractions in the pelvis pubicogesis, anal sphincter, uterus in women, bulbous spongiosis in men.
And they happen at a specific rhythm.
Yeah, about 0.8 seconds apart. It's remarkably consistent, suggesting a sort of pre-programmed pattern generator in the spinal cord.
Like a built-in beat. Wow.
And meanwhile, heart rate, breathing, blood pressure all peak. That co-activation of both systems likely creates that uniquely intense state.
Makes sense. And you mentioned other nerve pathways too, like the vagus nerve.
Right. The vagus nerve offers a potential shortcut from the cervix and uterus straight to the brainstem, bypassing the spinal cord.
So that could explain.
Well, it might explain how orgasm can sometimes happen without direct genital stimulation, or even in people with certain spinal cord injuries. It really highlights the brain's central role.
The brain is key. So let's go there. What's happening upstairs during climax? fMRI, PET scans. What do they show?
They show it's not one single orgasm center, it's a widespread network lighting up.
All over the place.
Pretty much. In women, studies show activity in sensory and motor areas. Definitely the reward pathways, nucleus accumbens, VTA emotional centers like the amygdala and insula, memory areas, parts of the frontal cortex, and brainstem nuclei that release hormones.
That's a lot of brain real estate. The analysis mentioned something about the rational part maybe taking a break. The orbitofrontal cortex.
Yes, some research suggests parts of the OFC involved in decision-making might quiet down temporarily. Could contribute to that feeling of, losing control or being totally absorbed.
Like the brain says, okay, focusing on this right now.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Now, there were some earlier studies, PT scans in men, that suggested deactivation in some areas like the amygdala.
Oh. Different from the women's fMRI result.
Potentially. Newer fMRI in women hasn't consistently shown those same big deactivations. It could be a sex difference or a difference between orgasm and ejaculation, or maybe just how the studies were done. We need more research there.
But the big picture is definitely activation, a synchronized network.
Absolutely. A huge amount of neural resources are recruited. And fascinatingly, there's overlap with brain areas involved in pain processing.
It's like the PAG, insula, ACC.
Exactly. That shared circuitry might be why orgasm can sometimes relieve pain.
So the headache excuse. Maybe sometimes the opposite is true. Okay, brain buzzing, muscles contracting. What about hormones? What's the chemical story?
The hormonal cascade. It's crucial. You get a big peak in dopamine right at orgasm. That's your primary pleasure and reward chemical.
Yes, more of this signal.
Exactly. Then there's oxytocin, the bonding or love hormone. Huge release. Promotes trust, connection, and triggers uterine contractions too.
Dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin for closeness. Makes sense. What else?
Prolactin surges after orgasm. That's linked to feelings of satisfaction, satiety, relaxation, maybe drowsiness, and it might be key to the male refractory period.
Okay, done for now hormone?
Sort of, yeah. Endorphins are released too, natural pain relief, euphoria, and serotonin rises post-orgasm, contributing to contentment, maybe sleepiness.
It's like a whole sequence. Excitement, peak, then calming down.
Precisely timed. You also have vasopressin, especially in men, linked to arousal and maybe attachment. Norepinephrine and epinephrine for the physical excitement. Some evidence for DHEA too, which might have health benefits.
Yeah.
It's a complex symphony.
The analysis even has a table laying out the male-female differences across the whole cycle. Really shows the complexity.
It does, and understanding all this physiology really sets us up for the next big question. Why? Why did orgasm evolve?
Right. The evolutionary significance. Let's dive into that why. First point the analysis makes, it's different for males and females in terms of reproduction, isn't it?
Fundamentally different. For males, orgasm, specifically ejaculation, is pretty much required for natural conception. It delivers the sperm.
Can't make a baby without it, generally speaking.
Right. But for females, orgasm is absolutely not required for conception. Pregnancy can happen whether she experiences orgasm or not.
And that difference necessary for males, not for females, is kind of the core of the evolutionary puzzle, isn't it?
It really is. It means the evolutionary pressures shaping it could have been very different, which leads to theories about female orgasm, like the sperm retention or upsuck idea.
Yeah, the contractions helping pull sperm towards the egg. What's the verdict on that?
The evidence is, well, it's debated. Some studies suggest it might happen, and oxytocin causing uterine contractions makes it biologically plausible. But other studies haven't found strong evidence, and Masters and Johnson's early work didn't support it.
And timing probably matters a lot, too.
Timing relative to ejaculation seems crucial, yes. So while it's used in, like, animal breeding, whether it's a significant factor in humans naturally, the jury is still out. It's not proven.
Okay, so if not necessarily for sperm transport, then what? This brings us to the big debate, adaptation versus byproduct.
Exactly. Is female orgasm something that evolved for a specific function and adaptation? Or is it just there because the underlying structures are shared with males, where it's clearly adaptive, a byproduct?
The byproduct idea, Elizabeth Lloyd's hypothesis, is like male nipples. There because of shared development, but not functional in the same way.
That's the analogy often used, yes. The clitoris and penis develop from the same embryonic tissue. Since male orgasm ejaculation is vital for reproduction, selection favored it strongly. Females got the capacity too, but maybe without a specific selected function of its own.
And the argument for that is often the variability, that women don't always orgasm during intercourse.
Right. Proponents point to that inconsistency as evidence against it being a finely tuned adaptation for intercourse. But critics say that view might be too narrow, focusing only on intercourse orgasm.
Okay, so what about the adaptation theories? That it did evolve for a reason in females?
Several ideas here. One is mate choice or sperm selection. Maybe orgasm acts as a subconscious signal to the female body about mate quality.
How so?
Perhaps orgasm is more likely with partners who have good genes or good potential providers, and the physiological changes during orgasm could maybe, possibly, favor their sperm.
That sounds complicated to prove.
It is. The evidence linking orgasm frequency to specific male traits is suggestive at best, often correlational, and not super strong.
What other adaptation ideas are there?
Pair bonding. This one has a lot of intuitive appeal. The intense shared pleasure, plus the flood of hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin, could act like emotional glue, strengthening the bond between partners.
Which would be important for raising kids together.
Exactly. Especially in a species like ours with long childhoods and biparental care needs. We do see correlations between orgasm satisfaction and relationship satisfaction, which fits.
Makes sense. Any others?
Just a straightforward idea that pleasure reinforces behavior. If sex feels good, you do it more often, which over time increases the chances of conception, even if it's not guaranteed each time.
So it sounds like there's no single agreed-upon answer.
Not yet. The analysis makes that clear. It's unresolved. It could be a mix of things, maybe started as a byproduct, then got co-opted for pair bonding, or maybe different functions are relevant in different contexts.
But beyond just making babies, the analysis points to clear functions. Intense pleasure itself, that pair bonding aspect, potentially mate assessment.
Absolutely. It serves roles beyond just conception.
Yeah.
And don't forget the genetics twin studies suggest female orgasm frequency is partly heritable.
Meaning there's a biological basis for the variation we see, which evolution could act upon.
Precisely. It's this complex mix of evolution, genetics, physiology.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Let's shift gears now to the subjective side. The experience itself, the psychology.
Right, the phenomenology. What does it actually feel like? It's that peak pleasure, the release of tension, sensations like warmth, tingling, pulsations.
And that altered state of consciousness we mentioned.
Yes.
Yes.
But it's incredibly variable, isn't it? Between people, even for the same person at different times.
What influences that variability?
So many things. Your psychological state, mood, stress, expectations, the context, relationship, setting, and of course the type of stimulation. It all shapes the experience.
Let's compare male and female experiences again. We know ejaculation and refractory period differences. What else?
Well, the lack of a typical refractory period in women means multiple orgasms are physiologically possible, more common than in men. Some evidence also suggests female orgasm might, on average, last a bit longer.
And subjectively, do people describe it differently?
Sometimes. Women might talk about different types, clitoral vaginal G-spot based on stimulation focus, though whether these are truly distinct physiologically is still debated scientifically.
It's hard to separate biology from language and expectation sometimes.
Very true. Which brings us to the orgasm gap in heterosexual couples. Men report orgasm during intercourse far more consistently.
Why is that if women clearly can orgasm readily in other ways?
It's likely multifactorial. Often, not enough direct clitoral stimulation during intercourse. Differences in arousal timing, communication issues, performance anxiety, those ingrained cultural scripts about what sex should look like.
So it's probably not a fundamental inability, but more about the context and technique.
That seems most likely, yes. The basic physical capacity seems quite similar across sexes when optimal stimulation is present.
Okay, after the peak, the aftermath, relaxation, fatigue, emotions. What's happening then?
That's the resolution phase. Hormones shift again. Prolactin and serotonin promote satisfaction, relaxation, sleepiness. The parasympathetic system takes back over, calming things down.
Blood flow recedes, muscles relax.
Right. The body returns towards its baseline state. Sometimes there's hypersensitivity for a bit, too.
Our listener mentioned feeling drained, relaxed, maybe emotionally indifferent. Does that track?
Perfectly. Drained from the physical exertion and muscle release. Relaxed from the hormones and parasympathetic rebound. Indifferent could be the prolactin effect, temporarily lowering desire. And oxytocin might linger longer in women, affecting postcoital emotions differently.
So orgasm isn't just the peak. It has this whole tail of effects related to motivation, desire, relief.
Definitely. The pleasure, dopamine, makes it a powerful motivator. And it's a release from built-up tension that's negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
Makes you want it again. Plus, the broader mood boost, stress reduction, those neurochemicals have lasting positive effects.
Okay, shifting to a more delicate topic, faking orgasm. The analysis says it's pretty common, especially for women.
Yes, prevalence estimates are quite high, unfortunately. Many women report having done it at some point.
Why? What are the reasons?
It's complex, often partner-focused, trying to please them, boost their ego, avoid hurting feelings, or avoiding negative consequences like ending the encounter sooner, sometimes self-focused, insecurity, feeling pressure. Relationship dynamics play a role too.
It sounds like often it's a communication issue or maybe societal pressure.
Very often, yes. Feminist critiques link it to male-centered sexual scripts.
Yeah.
Evolutionary psychology even has theories about mate retention, but the bottom line is it's usually linked to lower satisfaction for the person faking it and poorer relationship communication, not a healthy long-term strategy.
On the flip side, what about self-stimulation, masturbation? What's its role?
Hugely important. It's key for sexual self-discovery, learning what feels good. It provides direct access to orgasm and its health benefits, like stress relief, better sleep, pain relief, mood enhancement.
And therapeutically.
Yes, it's often used in treating difficulties like anorgasmia or helping manage premature ejaculation.
Despite historical stigma.
Right. While some cultural or religious views remain negative, modern psychology and medicine see it as normal, healthy, and often beneficial.
Okay, we've covered biology, evolution, psychology. Let's zoom out. How do culture, history, philosophy shape this?
Immensely. Orgasm isn't experienced in a vacuum. Historically, especially in the West, there was a lot of repression of sexual pleasure tied to religious morals.
And early psychology wasn't always helpful, especially for women.
No. Think Freud, Victorian norms. Female pleasure outside of procreative vaginal sex was often seen as immature or pathological. Terms like frigidity, treating hysteria. It reflected deep patriarchal biases.
Centered around male experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the mid-20th century brought huge shifts. Masters and Johnson's research showing the clitoris's role, the pill decoupling sex from procreation, second-wave feminism challenging male-centered views, books like Our Bodies, Ourselves, Empowering Women.
A sexual revolution in many ways.
In many ways, yes.
Yeah.
But that historical legacy lingers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In cultural attitudes, shame, communication issues, maybe even contributing to the orgasm gap.
Absolutely. And philosophy weighs into.
Oh, yeah. There's a long history of debate, sexual pessimism versus sexual optimism. Different ethical systems evaluate sex and orgasm differently.
Like natural law focusing on procreation within marriage.
Right, versus Kantian ethics, emphasizing respect, not using people merely for pleasure. Utilitarianism looks at maximizing happiness. Virtue ethics focuses on love and respect.
So how you judge the ethics of orgasm depends heavily on your underlying assumptions about sex's purpose.
Precisely. And religious views add another layer. Again, huge diversity here.
No single religious view.
Definitely not. Abrahamic traditions often historically emphasize procreation in marriage, leading to negative views on things like masturbation or non-procreative acts. But interpretations vary widely within Christianity, Judaism, Islam. Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism have different takes too, often related to desire and spiritual goals.
It's fascinating how these deep-seated ideas influence us.
It really is. Okay, let's talk broader implications. Health benefits.
Yes. The analysis lists quite a few potential ones.
Right. Stress and anxiety reduction seems likely those neurochemicals, lower cortisol, pain relief via endorphins, better sleep prolactin, oxytocin. Some studies link sexual activity to cardiovascular health, maybe immune function too.
So potentially part of a healthy lifestyle.
It can be viewed that way, yeah, as one aspect of holistic well-being.
And aging. Does sex speed it up? Slow it down?
No evidence it speeds it up. That's a myth. Some research, especially in men, links an active sex life to longevity, but that's likely confounded by overall health. Healthy people tend to have more sex and live longer.
Correlation, not causation.
Probably. There's a preliminary finding about telomere length in women maybe being linked to intimacy, but needs much more research. Aging does bring changes affecting function, erections, dryness, orgasm response.
But staying active might help mitigate some of that.
It might help maintain function longer, yes.
Okay, the analysis also drew some interesting connections. Genetics, we mentioned.
Mhm.
What about modeling, like physics or logic?
Well, the genetics show heritability. Modeling uses math like nonlinear dynamics to try and understand the arousal-orgasm cycle, kind of like modeling neuron firing. Physics analogies are more metaphorical, Feynman's quote, about knowing versus experiencing. Logic underpins all the scientific investigation, of course.
And interoception, our internal body sense.
Yes, orgasm is an incredibly intense interoceptive event, a flood of internal signals integrated with emotion and thought. The brain pathways overlap.
The analysis also dismissed any direct environmental impact of orgasm itself.
Correct. That seemed like a confusion between the act of orgasm and broader issues of population or resource use related to reproduction. Climax community is just an unrelated ecology term.
Got it. Okay, finally, let's talk well-being directly. Dysfunction, improvement. What if orgasm is difficult or absent?
That's orgasmic dysfunction, or anorgasmia. It's a persistent difficulty or inability to reach orgasm despite adequate stimulation and arousal, causing distress. More common in women.
And it can have many causes.
Yes. Physical, medical issues, meds, nerve damage, psychological, stress, trauma, body image, anxiety, relational conflict, poor communication, sociocultural beliefs, guilt, or simply insufficient or incorrect stimulation, especially lack of clitoral focus for women.
It can be lifelong or acquired, general or situational.
Exactly. Diagnosis involves looking at the whole picture history, physical exam, relationship context.
And treatment depends on the cause.
Absolutely. Addressing medical issues, maybe hormone therapy sometimes, like estrogen for postmenopausal women. Psychotherapy or sex therapy is huge. CBT, couples work, education.
Practical techniques, too.
Yes. Behavioral stuff like direct masturbation, sensate focus, exploring different types of touch, positions, sexual enhancement devices can help. And lifestyle factors, stress, sleep, body image, communication. ACE-certified therapists are often recommended.
And for anyone just wanting to enhance things, general tips.
Self-exploration is key. Learn your own body. Communicate openly with partners. Try mindfulness during sex. Introduce variety. Focus on pleasure overall, not just the orgasm goal. Nurture the relationship. Be patient. There's no single right way.
Wow. Okay. This has been incredibly thorough. We've covered so much ground. It's clear orgasm is way more than just a reflex.
Absolutely. It's biology, evolution, deep psychology, subjective experience, cultural influence, all wrapped up together.
Key takeaways. Evolution debated profound health and emotional impacts shaped by history, both universal and intensely personal.
Exactly. You really need that multidisciplinary view to start to grasp it.
Hopefully this deep dive gives you, our listener, a lot to think about, maybe prompts some personal reflection or new questions.
Perhaps you're curious about a specific evolutionary theory now, or the neuroscience, or the cultural history.
Or maybe just thinking about communication and pleasure in your own life.
Wherever your thoughts go next, it's clear that orgasm remains this incredibly powerful, complex, and fundamental part of being human.
Definitely a lot to mull over. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Hi.
This is DigitView.